So today I'm talking about how to coach duo. Probably the hardest event that I've ever had to coach. Why is it so hard? Because they keep changing the rules on duo. I know I don't look that old, but I started coaching in 1975, and there wasn't an event called duo then, except at the college level. High school, nationals, IHSFA, nobody had duo as an event. Within the next 3 years, I remember Jeff Hufford from Rushville, who some of you might remember, decided that he thought duo should be an event for IHSFA. And so he came to coaches conference, he brought some kids and he did a demonstration. And I'm telling you, I thought this is the greatest event we've ever had, but it looks like it's going to be hard to do. So basically, when you put together a duo, it's two people. A drama is only one person, so you've got twice the work to do, right? Well, when I first started, when I first had the first year of duo, it was so much different than it is now. Your feet were one person had their feet this way, and the other person had their feet this way. They stood shoulder to shoulder. They had a script. It had to be read from script. And there were some coaches who would give your kid last place if they thought any of it was memorized. Well, we held duo like that for several years. And my third year coaching at Plymouth, we got challenged. We were doing Pfeiffer's People as a duo. I had done it as a play, so I knew what it said about the characters playing different characters throughout. So anyway, we made a cutting. We worked on it all year. We had two little freshmen doing this. And they started doing well. Well, what happens when somebody starts doing well is the talk in the coach's lounge starts. Well, I'm not sure they're doing more than one character. I read that play, and this is supposed to be the boy, not the young man. So I walked into the state tournament that day to pick up my packet, and they also met me and said, there's a challenge on your duo. And I said, okay, I'm ready. So they brought me in. I've only been coaching for 2 or 3 years at this point. The entire council sat at a table. There weren't as many council members back then as there is now. And they had me talk to them about why I thought it was legal. So I went through my spiel. I showed them things. I had all kinds of things ready for this because I figured it was going to happen. And the final decision was to send Jim Hawker, who was the most revered coach in Indiana, and maybe the United States. They sent Jim Hawker to go in and watch it in round 2. And whatever he decided is what would happen. So after round 2, I went into the office and Mr. Hawker came in and we all sat at that table again. And Jim said, well, folks, I went and watched it. I don't think it's illegal. I think it is legal. It's not any good. It's not any good at all. I don't know why we're wasting our time with it. I think it's legal. Let's go ahead and have the tournament. So at the end of the day, those 2 little freshmen who had been challenged, who weren't very good, won the tournament. They won the state tournament. And this isn't the last time that we've been challenged on a duo. I think it's probably the most often event that's been challenged over the 40 years that I've been involved. Well, then they changed it. They brought something. They said we're gonna have it be memorized because that's what NFL was doing. So brought it to coach's clinic, and we had this big discussion, and coaches would say, my kids can't memorize. Let's not do this. And Dave Mckenzie, who was coaching at Northfield at that time, put his hand up and he said, why don't we just have 2 duos? Now, he was being sarcastic, but people didn't know Dave very well at that point. And somebody made a motion, and it was voted on, and we had memorized duo and we had scripted duo. Now I've got two duos to coach. I'm telling you, they just won't leave the event alone. Well, right before I left to go into administration, they started doing some blocking. And it wasn't the type of blocking that we have today. It was like, I would walk in back, I would turn around, I would do these, and you had to figure out why you're going to do these things and find some motivation for it. And it was kind of cool. We were all used to it, but you couldn't just hand a kid 2 scripts and say, go do it. It had to be memorized, and there had to be some blocking. So when I came back into coaching 3 years ago, now I find out it's like blocking a play now. How could they make it any harder? Well, last year NSDA did, because they decided, even with social distancing, instead of having the students say 6 feet apart, which would have been a great idea, what they did was they said, you have to record this, and the students need to be in 2 different rooms. Now, you got to understand, if you weren't involved in this, that was a real pain in the butt. It just made it harder than heck. And I think here, before we go on, I'm going to show you a video of our duo that we worked with and took it from a regular memorized blocked duo. Now, not only do we have to do all those things, but we have to put them in 2 different rooms, and we're going to record it so it looks like they're standing close to each other. Our school was closed. We couldn't go into school. We couldn't take kids into school. I had to tell the superintendent that in order to be able to do it and let these kids compete at nationals, that we were going to have to find a place to go, because after doing some practicing on Google Meet, what I found out was that you really couldn't do it in a house, because no matter where you put them, they could hear each other. There was a delay, and it took an 8.5 or 9.5 minute cutting and made it into a 10-minute cutting. We tried putting it in several different places. Their houses were the same thing. You couldn't get them far enough apart they could hear. They came to my house. It didn't work there. One of the places we found was, we took them to Christo's Banquet Center. And I thought, well, nobody's having banquets right now. This ought to be a good place to have it. And it was, except the walls were a little tough. So let's now take a look at this video, and we'll probably have some conversations on it. I don't know if we're going to have to do it this way or not this year, but I think it would be good to look at. Here we go.
It's Ever Montgomery from 4C, and I'd like to talk with you.
Go away.
I'll be brief.
I'll be busy.
I promise I'm very serious.
I'm going to call the super.
Thank you. Rodolfo will vouch for my personal character.
Get lost.
That would be difficult. I know this building too well.
What do you want?
I want you to give me a dance lesson.
Come in. Look at me. What's wrong with this picture?
You model braces?
Smartass, I don't teach. I'm a dancer.
I think I should apologize. I'd like to pay you $2,153 for a dance lesson.
You sleazy son of a bitch. And what kind of dance are you looking for? A lap dance?
You charge that much for sex?
No, I don't charge for sex.
That's very kind of you.
Martha Graham once said, "Dance is the hidden language of the soul of the body." We find evidence in these words as Ever Montgomery, an autistic professor who must learn how to dance for a social event, and Senga Quinn, an injured Broadway dancer, struggle to find their place in the world.
As Senga agrees to give Ever a dance lesson, they both struggle through their conditions to find the friendship they so both desperately need.
Dance Lessons by Mark St. Germain. Come in, Ever.
It's Ever Montgomery from 4C.
So, Ever, a slow song is really the easiest to learn.
I'm sure you're right, but it has to be a fast song. The faster, the better.
Okay. Then it'll have to be something like this. Da, 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 da. Okay, follow me. Come on. Okay, now move your hips. Okay, keep dancing and do it. Yeah, there you go, Ever. Have some confidence in yourself. Okay, now turn towards your partner. Then away. Then side to side.
Wait, stop! Sorry!
What the hell is wrong with you?
Sorry, I have autism. I'm overwhelmed with repetitive behaviors. We have trouble establishing relationships because we're so overwhelmed with intensity. Most have trouble sleeping. I average 4 hours a night. Sometimes my head feels like there's 10 TVs on and someone just turned on a radio.
That sounds hard. Can you be cured?
I'm not sick. Autism causes behaviors that are unexplainable, but I'm not handicapped like you are.
I am not handicapped. I am injured temporarily.
Senga's a unique name.
You can blame that on my father. My mother wanted to name me Agnes. Senga is Agnes spelled backwards. Why did you change the subject?
A conversational diversion because you sounded angry.
Well, what kind of name is Ever?
They gave me my maternal grandfather's surname. I was very lucky.
Lucky?
His first name was Waddle. Will you ever dance again?
My knee's totally torn up.
That's repairable.
Not without a complicated surgery.
You haven't had surgery yet?
I have this thing. Malignant hypothermia. It's an allergy to anesthesia. Every doctor that I've talked to says that I shouldn't risk surgery. That I should wear a brace for the rest of my life. And never dance again.
That's reasonable.
I'm going to find a doctor who will operate.
Even if it kills you.
It already did. I can't dance. Okay. Let's start again. Dun, 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 dun. Come in, Ever.
Miss Quinn, I contacted a colleague at her medical school, and she said it's not moral or ethical for surgeons to operate on someone like you.
So
you'd have a better chance surviving a shots in the head.
well, I'll take any odds.
And that's why I contacted Wei Chen, a colleague.
Dr. Wei Chen?
Yes.
Dr. Wei Chen, an orthopedic surgeon?
Yes.
But she won't see me.
Well, she has agreed with a consult and evaluation with her and her anesthesiologist.
You really did this?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Not really, I just like solving problems. Miss Quinn,
I don't want to talk to you.
you don't know who it is.
Go away, Ever.
Just tell me what I did wrong.
What did you tell Dr. Chen about me?
I told her about your condition.
My mental condition?
No, your torn ligaments.
No. You told her that I wanted to kill myself.
No.
Okay, you told her I didn't want to live if I couldn't dance again.
I did say that.
Ever, she sent me to a psychiatrist.
Okay,
She refused to meet with me until I saw her shrink.
that's reasonable. Why are you mad at me?
Because today I had to sit in front of this stranger and tell everything that I never talk about, and it's your fault. I mean, what the hell does she want from me?
The truth.
I'm sorry. What?
You're risking your life for the small chance of dancing again. She wants to see if you're mentally competent to make that decision.
Oh, so you think I'm crazy?
I'm not qualified to make that judgment.
I never considered suicide.
You shouldn't lie.
I did not lie.
You just lied again! People who lie don't use contractions, so they'll have more time to think. They avoid eye contact. Their body stance is protective. And they touch their throats in their face when they say it.
This is ridiculous.
A liar's voice shows tension and a small rise in pitch.
So what? You think every person I know hasn't lied to me?
I haven't. You lied to me. You don't have friends. And the super says you never go out. You need to find another meaningful focus.
So what? Dancing is my life.
But you can't dance.
Then I would rather be dead.
Did I interrupt a suicide attempt?
Why do you care? I'm broken.
You're not the only one who's broken, Sangha. Sometimes I think if I wasn't a teacher, I wouldn't be anybody. Sangha, I still want one dance lesson.
You aren't afraid?
Very. Teach me a slow song.
The slow song is the easiest to learn.
Fred and Sarah have put in a ton of work for this conference, and I just want to make sure that we thank them for all the hard work. I had never worked with Google Classroom until yesterday, and getting along pretty well. But thank you. Fred, thank you, Sarah, for everything that you've done to get this, make sure this conference went off. Now, back to Duo, and I will say this, that these are only my opinions. I am not talking about the IHSFA rules. You can read those yourself. This is my philosophy of coaching. I think that in my career, I had more finalists in the Duo tournaments than any other event. And I had quite a few state champions as well. But these are the things that have worked for me. And if you're looking for some things to help you, take a look at some of the things I'm talking about. If you don't like it, throw it away. If you do, that's great. Then the education that I intended for today will have worked. All right, first thing, when I'm working on a Duo, we will come back to that video you just saw and talk about that and what we had to do. When you talk about pairing duos together, people together, that's really important. If you put the wrong two people together, you're going to struggle with the Duo. The first thing I look at is, do they look the part? I've got a Duo that I would like to run right now, but I don't have the people on the team that would fit that part. So I keep it on the shelf that says, do it someday, it's good. Do they have a similar work ethic? The hardest thing in the world to do is put somebody in a Duo paired with somebody who really doesn't like to practice very much. That's the best way to get in, have your kids get into fights and not be, get ready for the sectional tournament and they're not talking to each other. Do they get along? Or if you've never seen them together, do they seem to get along with everybody else on the team? I think that's important, that you don't want to put somebody who's kind of off to themselves on it. Want to get somebody who work together. Next thing, never put a girlfriend and a boyfriend together, because when they break up, the Duo's over. For us, I don't know about the rest of you, but for us, I look at, are they in a sport? What sport is it? When's it going to be playing? Because I know pretty well what the conflicts are going to be for different sports. And probably the most important thing for speech kids, don't put a band student with a choir student, because you'll lose them probably 4 tournaments, 5 tournaments after January, or after Christmas, because they'll be going to contest on different weekends. And just don't do that. And then finally, have they worked together before, and how did that go? I generally don't like to put people together 2 years in a row, but if you've got those people that are really good to get good and they want to work together, it probably, I would probably do it. But if I look back on all the Duos that I coached over the years, you're not going to see that I did that very often. Once you get the pair put together, then you got to decide what pieces that they're going to use. And again, you have to go through a list of things to make sure that they're a good pair for this. The first thing, if they're going to do Duo, they're probably an interpreter. Are they either a drama or are they humor? A lot of kids are both, but some kids aren't. So we have to really be careful to see if they have a tendency to go to the dramatic side. Then putting them in a humorous piece is probably not going to work real well for them. I would like to say that also you have to really know a little bit about them. Are they really religious? Last year, I had 2 kids I was going to put together, and 2 guys, and I gave them a script that's older, Wish Fulfillment. We won the state with that script twice. And it hadn't been done for a while around here. At least that's what I was told. And I gave it to them. We did a read through, chose who was going to play what part, went home, and that evening I got a phone call. He said, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I really don't think I want to play a homosexual. And I know if my mom found out, she wouldn't be happy with me, and she wouldn't be happy with you. And I said, that's fine. I'm glad you told me that we could do this. So we went back to the collection of possible duos, and we picked out something else. So who's going to do what part? I always have them do it, read through, and at one of them reads through with this character, and then the next time the other person has that character. So I hear both of them. A couple of years ago, we were doing one called The Wasp, and there was kind of a highfalutin character, and there was another one that pretty much kind of rough around the edges. And when I said, what do you think parts you should play? You've read it. And they said the wrong parts. So I had them do the read through. And after the read through was over, they both said, no, we need to switch. Then it has to be somewhat balanced. You can't have a duo where you've got one character speaking for about 7.5 minutes and the other character speaking for 2.5 minutes. That's not a duo. So it might have been a good drama, or it might have been a good humor. You can still go back and do that. But be careful that you don't get a duo that's out of balance. What you'll end up doing, even if they're really good, is that people will say this just wasn't balanced, and it didn't look right. Finally, and you can help me if you've got some other things, but finally, are there any special things the person has to be able to do? So in the duo that you just saw, the young man was a high functioning autistic person, and so we had to make sure that he could portray that. Could be an accent, could be somebody with Tourette's syndrome that is playing, could be somebody that's crippled. And I got a funny story. Concord and New Haven were at the district tournament, and New Haven, his high school coach was the coach from Concord. And so Concord had Anastasia in the final round of drama, and the one from New Haven was judging it, and he came out. He said, I couldn't give your kid a very good score. And he said, why not? He said, well, that was the worst Russian accent I have ever heard. And the Concord's coach said, that's funny. She's an exchange student from Russia. We had quite a laugh over that, and we still tell the story, some of us who were there that day. But you don't want a bad, somebody that does a bad accent. And there have been times that I've had a piece that I wanted them to do, but the person couldn't do the accent, so we had to get rid of it at that year. Save it for another day. Next, where do you go to get duos? Well, first, I think most duos probably come from plays. So you'll be looking at play scripts and the different publishers of plays. And what's become popular today is that we get them from movie scripts. And I've found that Scriptfly has some of the best shows that, and I can't find it in other script places that sell movie scripts. So I always go to that now, the Scriptfly, because if I'm looking at a movie, it's probably a movie is older or wasn't didn't have a very good run. And Script City and some of the other scripts that places they don't carry it, but I generally can find it at Scriptfly. Now, I'll tell you, you have to be careful. Two things about a movie script. Number one, sometimes the lines that are in the movie are not the same lines that are in the movie script. You have to read that because you can get in trouble if you don't. You got to make sure you might be buying the very first script that they brought to the movie stage, and then as they go through it, they rewrite, and that stuff doesn't get into the script. Sometimes they'll tell you that here's one script and here's a final script. The final script is generally a little bit more, and movie scripts for that much. Generally, with the shipping, they charge anywhere from $25 to $35. So you have to be really, really careful. Now, there's another place that you can get duos, and that is you can go into the national reservoir of scripts, and you can transcribe the script from. You got to be careful. When you do that too, because if that person made up some lines and they're not in the play or they're not in the script, then when you start putting together your stuff for sectional and district and state, you go, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? It's not there. And I know I can generally tell when I watch a duo if they just made a copy from a script. So you got to be careful. The other thing is you got to be careful of plagiarism. Some people not only use those tapes, they even copy the introduction. And that is just an example of plagiarism. They also, I see, are talking about artistic plagiarism now. So if I'm going to do something that somebody did at nationals and it's on a tape, usually take that and maybe that's our basis for the cutting. And yes, it is in the script, but we try to make it a different cutting, not completely different, but I would say somewhere between 25 and 35% of the cutting and change it. And I think if you saw the tape on that, the one I just showed you, the dancing lessons, I think you'd be surprised at what's different in my cutting than the tape that was, I think, 2017, 2014. I don't remember exactly, but we do change them when we use them. We don't just make a copy and then do it exactly like that. Okay, so now we've got our students and we've got our pairs that we've put together and we've picked out what it is that we want to do. Next is how do you cut a duo? And I generally, if possible, I try to create a script that is funny or at least sweet throughout. And then at the end, it gets serious and there's a dramatic ending. I think that is something that people like to hear. And I think it's just a good way to cut a script. And even though might have a place that, or might have a script that you're cutting, and it doesn't have a lot of humor, and it really doesn't have a lot of drama in it. It's pretty much a script that is like a study, but you can usually figure out how to put some comedy into it and also how to create a dramatic ending. Now, I say this, and some of you are probably going to laugh. But before I went into retirement, we were at the sectional tournament, and a veteran coach came up to me and said, kind of hate to do this, but I'm filing a protest against your duo. And I said, well, what do you think is wrong with it? And she said, well, I know that stuff that you used is all over that play. I've done that before. And in duo, you have to take 10 minutes someplace and cut that directly out. And you didn't do that at all. So anyway, I got people together and they listened to it. And I mean, this was a veteran coach who thought that's how you cut a duo. Well, I can tell you that we weren't disqualified that day. But if you will study scripts, you will find that you can take pieces from the beginning, pieces from the end, pieces from the middle. Where you find it, the last one, dancing lessons, the stuff that we used at the end of that really came at the beginning of the play. So it's not a straight cut. Here's 10 minutes of this, put it over here. So how do you learn that? If you're sitting out there new, how do you know how to take pieces from? Well, the best way to do it is go back to those scripts that are online, or even go to YouTube, and you can find duos and dramas and humors and things. But when you get home, then play it and go through the book and find those lines. I did that in 1982. Now we didn't have videos back then, but I took a little tape recorder and I held it up during the drama final, and then I went back and I started looking. Okay, how did they make this piece? And I was just flabbergasted. I couldn't believe the things that they've done. And I still, when I look at that and things that come from the NFL tapes right now, I still think, wow, that was really creative to take that part of the play and put it in. So I really think that's the best way to learn how to do it. We don't have time in a conference like this to do it. But if you ever want to talk about that one-on-one, just let me know. We could probably have another Zoom meeting, and I could take you through some things that would help. Okay, blocking. And I would say blocking by playing by the rules. I was a theater director as well as a speech coach. And so I already knew stage directions and the types of things. And I blocked a ton of plays and musicals over the years. And when I go into a duo round and I look at the blocking they've chosen to do, I really think it's important that you have blocked the cutting using motivation from the play or the movie. I see some duos and they've blocked it and the characters are all over the place, but there's no motivation. It doesn't make sense. Is it cute? Yeah. Does one person get down on the ground and the other person jump over them or under them or through their legs? If there's not motivation, why are you doing it? So I think that's really important. And again, remember, that's just who I am as a coach and as a judge. But I don't think that we're supposed to block for the heck of it. So what I like to do, and I don't block until the play's memorized, the cutting's memorized. We work on that. We work on characterization, and we work on memorization before we actually start blocking. We may do some pantomime in those early stages, but I create, maybe there's 3 scenes that we're at, and I will create, what does that scene 1 look like? Is there a refrigerator in it? Is there a table in it? Is there a door in it? Anyway, I kind of draw up a set for them and for myself. And then as we start blocking, I think it's important that the table is in the same place every time they go to it. Where's the refrigerator? Where's the handle when they go to open the refrigerator? What are they taking out? Can you tell by the pantomime? Well, you should be able to. Where's the door? Is there a door in the scene? And I'll tell you, when we had to do dancing lessons as in 2 different rooms at the same time, I had to throw out a lot of our blocking, or I had to accept some things that that I wouldn't have accepted if we were doing it live. We had to change a lot of the blocking. Basically, we had to take a lot of the blocking out. Now, after I saw some things at nationals, I've got some new ideas, and I would suggest if we ever have to do that again, that you look at those tapes and see what they did, because there was really some creative things that I would have thought beforehand that were not legal. Not only were they legal, but they really helped the duo. If you've watched it already, you know you weren't supposed to zoom in and zoom out, but the character can go close to the camera, and there were some great that were going on. Also, you weren't supposed to move the camera from side to side, but they had one individual that would run off the stage and then come back on, and it was fantastic. And I wouldn't have thought it was legal, but it was legal, and it looked really good. If we're pouring a 2-liter bottle up into a glass, where we rehearse, we're really close to the prop closet for the theater department. So I go in there and I get the stuff that we need, and we actually set up a scene, and they work using the props, so their pantomime is good. And we don't have a refrigerator, but we'll turn a long table up on its end, and we work like that. And in order to get the blocking down really good, I think you have to do that. Okay, those are the things that I like to do. I've seen really good duos who don't do it that way, and I'm not saying that you have to do it my way. I've given kids that have not had didn't really have great blocking. It wasn't believable, but they were so darn good in character that I'm not going to let one piece get in the way of it. But to me, when I put things out there, I want them to be good at blocking. I want them to be good at pantomime, and I want it to be extremely believable. And if you have those kind of expectations for your kids, let me tell you, they will respect what you're doing. They love the fact that they feel great when they come out and their stuff is believable. So, playing by the rules, this is a tough one, because most of us haven't read the rules and we don't know what the heck's in the rules. I remember a time coach came up to me and said, "I just judged your duo and both kids went out of the hula hoop." Well, there's never been a rule that said in interp you have to stay in a hula hoop. You put that thing around you, and that's where you drop it to the floor. And coaches used to use that a lot. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it was ever, the hula hoop was ever brought up, but it is not a rule. It's never been a rule. If you need to use more stage than that hula hoop gives you, you can. Next, eye contact. Well, with all the crazy blocking we're doing now, it sometimes is really difficult in a scene, is to have them looking at each other and not making eye-to-eye contact, and you have to be very careful about it. I saw a duo this year where I really felt like they had crossed the line, and because of that, and because it was really important to the cutting that they were doing, I did move them down several spaces. It was a really big tournament, and it had a great final round. There were really a lot of good kids in there. So because of that, because I felt like they looked at each other and played off of each other's eye contact, that it was a different cutting that if they played by the rules. And I'm not afraid to tell somebody if they ask me. Now, this particular tournament was one where we're not supposed to have critiques, so nobody asked me. But you know, I will, if we have critique sheets, I'll put that on my critique. And if you want to come and ask me about it, I'm fine with that. Now, don't come yelling at me, but just nicely come and say, hey, look at your critique from last week. I want to talk to you about this duo. I'll sit down with you and go through it. No touching, and I find this to be really hard, especially when you're dancing or when you're putting your arm around somebody to comfort and you're hugging. Doing that is really, really difficult to make it look real, to make it look like they really have their arm around them, or that they're shaking hands or kissing or slapping. Those things are very difficult to do. It takes a lot of rehearsal. And when you do get it down, it does look pretty good. But remember, in the duo, in any place besides the introduction, you can't have direct eye contact, and you can't have touching. You have to remember those things, because we really have gotten so close to duet scenes that it's really difficult to cross that, or it's probably crossing that line will happen every once in a while. So we either need to change the rules and says you can do those things, or we just have to pretend that or just have to not do it. So that's where we are in creating a duo scene. At this particular point, I would like to maybe hear from you. If you have questions, please turn on your mic, ask the question, and then I'll answer it. I think we've got about 4 minutes to go here. So anybody have any questions, we'll take those until our time is up. This is where we really need to be able to make eye contact with people. Don't see any.
I'm here. I have a comment, Dan.
Yeah.
This is Jeannie Malone from Cathedral High School.
Hi,
I would agree with you. I watched this year's finals in the duo, and I went, that does interpret the rule in terms of zooming towards the camera. I thought, as I also watched those, and I would encourage anyone else, if we end up going virtual after Christmas, you're going to want to watch those. There are just a number of great tricks, and that's all I can say is tricks or interpretations of the guidelines. I want to be kind here. There were many things I never would have thought of, and I'm glad you brought it up. So it's not so much a question as a highlight that, go watch them. It's worth your while, and definitely your students. If we're uploading for virtual tournaments this fall and next spring, the people who interpreted those upload rules, I want to be kind, that were very creative people, more creative perhaps than myself, it was like a light bulb moment for me. So thanks for bringing that up.
Sure. And the other one, there were some, not just duo, but there were some where I really felt like the lighting that they used was professional lighting. And I know it said we weren't supposed to do that. If I would have questioned anything, and I'm pretty liberal about the rules, if I would have questioned anything, it would have probably been that lighting, because I felt like it really, especially in oratory, it gave the young lady, it really worked for her. She was standing in front of a black screen, and then the lighting there was a, only you could only do that with professional lights, I think. But yeah, we should look at that. Any last questions before we go?
I have one.
Okay.
If we go into the world virtually for the entire season, I would recommend from this workshop in particular that we give our coaches some kind of reconvening opportunity, some, I don't know, after school, Zoom, whatever, so we can have our technically talented coaches. I'm thinking of Sarah Berghoff has a whole radio and TV station in her classroom. Show us some of these at-home tricks. And again, the haves and the have-nots, who has the best internet speed at their house because of their neighborhood. The quality, the variance in our district videos that got posted shows you the difference all over Indianapolis in internet and what people can afford to have. So I too, really, if we could reconvene just for a tutorial on uploading duos and the interp events, I would come. I would really come.
That's a great idea, and we'll have to talk about that, because I would love to be involved in something like that. It's so difficult. You know, I've talked to coaches that their kids were so poor they had to use their telephone to do their recording. Yep. And I'm not saying, you know, those phones have such good cameras in them anymore, but and then when you saw that some of them did them in their kitchen, and some people had no place to do it. I saw one that was outside.
Right.
So it's tough. And I said, I think Dave and I talked before the national tournament and said, unfortunately, we think the people who have the money, and Apple Valley won, and I think that just goes to show you the people that have the money and good coaches, they're going to come out ahead. And they did.
It's hard to have a fair footing anyway when we compete in this very privileged activity. You know, who has the suits, who has the buses, who has the money. But this just sort of put it on steroids for me. The technological divide in our society, which we can't fix here in the next 30 seconds. But yeah, I just hope as a state, perhaps we can lead instead of go, oh, wow, that's too bad.
Yeah, we really got no professional development from the nationals on the use of the camera.
Right.
They said when they first turned it out that they were going to send out best practices for us, and unless I just missed it, I didn't see them. I would hope we would never do what we didn't do before. I would rather the two kids in duo in debate and policy debate in public forum, I would rather they put their mask on than to have to film them in two different rooms.
I would agree.
Okay, it is past time. Thank you for being a great audience, and My email is in the Constitution. Don't be afraid to ask questions through that or call. Thank you very much.